Hey guys, welcome back to another Forge Refinery recap. We went through Acts 14 today, a little bit shorter of a chapter, but man, a lot going on. Uh, awesome chapter, a lot of powerful stuff. I will say this: there's a lot of like city names. Don't judge me on those. I'm sure my pronunciation is wrong with those, but let's just jump right to it. So I'll read through the chapter, kind of start where we kind of stopped and talked. And so 14 verse 1. Now at Iconium they entered together into the Jewish synagogue and spoke in such a way that a great number of both Jews and Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against their brothers. Think about different things that are happening right now, because history repeats itself, right? Um, but just think about the things that are happening right now where people, um, they don't like what's being talked about, they don't like what's being done, they don't like change, progress, and so they come in and talk to people and convince them or get them to go against what they believe to fill their agenda or to not move away, right? Because if here's a group, right, and they've got a following and part of their following starts to leave, their group gets smaller, they feel less significant, and so they got to do whatever they can to uh, not lose followers. And if you can prevent another program from growing or another organization, whatever, a movement, anything from growing, and you can keep yours growing, because if something else starts growing, you have competition, right? Um, And so we just think about, like, man, the unbelieving are turning people against the ones that are believing. And you think about how just like how many people are getting turned against people now. Um, that's just crazy, right? To think about. Um, and anyway, so verse 3, so they remained for a long time, speaking boldly for the Lord, who bore witness to the world of his grace, granting signs and wonders to be done by their hands. But the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews and some with the apostles. Um, and so you think about that, right? They've already created a bunch of division. They've already created a bunch of anybody who was on the fence is getting bad mouthed and torn apart, right? And it's like, well, maybe, you know, they stopped them from getting saved. 5, when an attempt was made by both Gentiles and Jews with their rulers to mistreat them and to stone them, they learned of it and they fled to Lystra and Derbe, cities of Lycaonia, and to the surrounding country, and there they continued to preach the gospel. So word got back around to them that they were going to try to, they were going to try to kill them, right? Um, which is crazy because it's funny because it's not funny, but there's stuff going on right now in our nation where people are like, yeah, they don't think like I do, so arrest them, and they're not doing what I'm doing, so you know, put them in jail or get rid of them or lock them up. Or we're not far from jail. Their punishment was stoning, hanging. We've gotten a little far away from that, but the equivalents, right? And then an 8 now at, let me see where we're next. Okay, yeah. And so one of the things we talked about is here they're dividing cities, they're dividing neighborhoods, they're dividing the equivalents to states. What do we got going on now, right? In our nation, we have such a division over everything. Um, you've got division over simple things like what to eat, what is healthy, what's not healthy, diets. You've got division over race and who's doing what to who. You've got division over faith and religion. You've got division over mask, no mask, vaccine, no vaccine, quarantine, no quarantine, what car to wear or what car to drive, what brand of shoe to wear, like everything. What sport to support, what team to support. There's things that like just tear us apart, and you see it here and how significant it was. And I just think, they wrote about it, they're talking about it, it's important. We have to be aware of that, and when all of these divisions start to point to the one division, we got to be prepared for that, right? And then 8, now at Lystra there was a man sitting who could not use his feet. He was crippled from birth, so not a single day in his life has this guy ever walked, and he had never walked. 9. He listened to Paul speaking, and Paul looking intently at him and seeing that he had faith to be made well. So this dude's thinking, like, man, that guy healed all those people. Jesus healed those people. Surely I can be healed. 10, and this is Paul, said in a loud voice, stand upright on your feet. And he sprang up and began walking. So let me finish with 11. And when the crowd saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in Lycaonian, the gods have come down to us in the likeness of men. So it was his faith that made him well, right? It was nobody else saying like, hey, I want to make you well. I'm praying for you and I have faith that I can make you well. It was his faith, right? And so we've kind of talked about like people don't think that healings happen. They just think that the spiritual gifts are outdated. But I think it takes a level of faith on both ends. And, Paul had faith that people could be healed. He's seen it. He's done it. But it took this man to believe in his heart wholeheartedly that I've got the faith to be healed, and he's made well. You have to. The second miracle here is, think about people that are in car accidents, right? Some people have to relearn how to walk, right? Like the muscle memory is gone. This man has never walked. He does not have muscle memory. He does not have balance. Like, you think of a baby walking, how long it takes them when they go from crawling to leaning on things to walking, staggering, to being able to run and walk without hesitation. That takes a period of time. The core strength, the leg strength, the balance, the understanding of lifting. And this guy has never walked a day in his life. He doesn't have those muscles. He doesn't have that coordination. And just like that, he gets up. The other thing that we kind of talked about is they say the people of Lystra, I think they're in Lystra, yeah, the Lacanian, they talk about the gods have come down, right? So these aren't even people that, most of the people aren't the people that are pursuing this Jesus guy and the religion that is moving, or the relationship that's moving across the scene. They're believing in something else, because in 12 they say Barnabas they called Zeus, Paul they called Hermes, and some translations say mine said it down here earlier and I saw it and now I don't know where it is. Jupiter, I think, and another Greek god. Anyway, not important. Jupiter and Mercury, sorry. But that's who they were comparing them to, and they weren't talking about the Christian God and Christ. And Barnabas they called Zeus, Paul they called Hermes because he was the chief speaker. 13, and the priest of Zeus, whose temple was at the entrance of the city, brought oxen and garlands to the gates and wanted to offer sacrifice with the crowds, right? So they think these are gods that are doing the healing. They think they are these Greek gods that they worship. And so they've got different temples for different gods, and the guy who preaches, or the priest at one of the temples, that they're ready to sacrifice, give it all to these guys. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of it, they tore their garments and rushed out into the crowd, crying out, "Men, why are you doing these things? We also are men of like nature with you, and we bring you good news that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them." And so 15, huge chapter, right? Men, why are you doing these things? Why are you worshiping something that is worthless? Why are you worshiping something that is dead, gone, doesn't exist, never existed? Worthless. You're wasting your time, right? We also are men of like nature with you. So we're the same as you, right? They thought they were gods. They're saying, no, we're the same as you, but we bring good news. And we bring good news that you should turn from the vain things that you're doing to a living God, right? So stop worshiping something that doesn't exist. worship the thing that created you. A living God who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, right? So you're worshiping a God that doesn't exist, didn't create anything, and you should turn from that and worship the very God that created you. Just huge mic drop, huge power right there. And 16, in past generations, he allowed all the nations to walk in their own ways. They're talking about God. 17, yet he did not leave himself without witness, for he did good by giving you rains from heaven, fruitful seasons, satisfying your hearts with food and gladness. Even with these words, they scarcely restrained the people from offering sacrifice to them. So they're telling them, like, hey, God, who we worship, Jesus' Father, he allowed you to worship whatever you wanted in the past. But even though you were doing whatever it was you wanted, he gave you rain. He gave your fields were plentiful. He let you be glad. And he very easily could have not allowed those things. And he could have, look at Sodom. Look at the world in Noah's time, right? He didn't allow it. But they ignored it, right? Even with these words, they scarcely restrained the people. So the people would just keep coming, and they were still trying to offer them sacrifice, which is crazy to me, right? And so you think about modern application here, right? God allows us to do things that we want to do, even though it goes against Him. He lets us think things that we want to, even though it goes against Him, even though it hurts Him, even though it grieves Him. He still allows it, but yet he still allows areas of our life to be fruitful, right? And so people say, oh, I don't see God doing this and this and this, and I don't say that in a matter of keep doing what you're doing. God's still gonna. What I'm saying is, He created us. We should be worshiping Him and thanking Him and worshiping Him more than we worship our desires, our flesh, and the things in our life. And just think how much more plentiful that would be, right? And going back to the healing thing, a friend of mine, his wife just went to the hospital. She's been having pains in kidneys and was very much like something needs to be done. They looked one day, there was like a blockage, possibly a tumor, possibly like a knot in the tube coming out of the kidney. Next day went in 9 a.m. for surgery to get whatever taken care of. Was gone, no tumor, no blockage, no knot in the tube, nothing. And both kidneys functioning like perfectly good, healthy kidneys. And they're like, oh, we don't have any idea. But we were praying about it, right? And so it does happen. We just try to use medical science, and we try to use other reasons and excuses to cover those things up, right? And man, the power of prayer, right? So picking up in 19, but Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and having persuaded the crowds, they stoned Paul, dragged him out of the city, supposing that he was dead, right? So they think he's dead. We've stoned him to death. They drag him out of the city. But when the disciples gathered about him, he rose up and entered the city. And on the next day, he went on with Barnabas to Derbe, right? So they think this dude's dead, right? Not unconscious, and we're going to leave him for dead. They think he's dead. Supposing that he was dead, drag him out of the city, right? So he was like pretty much dead, right? At least if you're leaving somebody for dead, they might be like gargling blood, maybe breathing a little. They thought this dude was dead. Drag him out there. The disciples gather around him. Doesn't say what they were doing, but I can only imagine, this is my speculation, that like, oh man, Paul's dead. But they roll up. He gets up, goes back into the city that just stoned him. How many of us, believer, non-believer, if something like that was to happen, like we stood for something, right? We put our foot down. This is what I believe. I'm sold out. I'm telling people about what I'm sold out on. I get stoned. Maybe I don't even stoned it. I just get beat. Man, you know what? Even less than that. I get fined a bunch of money. It might slow me down. I might not think about being as strong in it. Then it does lead to prison. It leads to getting beat. It leads to my family having problems. Now I might change what I'm preaching, what I'm standing so firm on, right? Because okay, you've convinced me, and you see that now, man. There are people that, oh, I ain't doing this, I ain't doing that. I mean, I can remember last year people saying, no, they can't keep us shut down forever. They can't find us if we do this. They can't force us to do this, and it's like, bro, Are you paying attention? Like, these things are happening. And there are people that are sold out that I'm not getting a vaccine, I'm not getting no shot, they can't make me do it. And then as soon as they say, well, if you don't get it, you're losing your job, you're losing your retirement, you're losing Social Security, people are going to change their tune, right? There are people that they can't make me do nothing. And then they do. They make you do it. I don't think there's very many people that can't be bought, right? I think there's a chip on the table for almost everybody that can convince them to come off of something. There are things that I'm sold out. Oh, okay. There are things that I stand strongly about that I think certain things can shift them. And then there are things that I am sold out on that you are not going to change my mind. Consequence is nothing. It ain't going to change it, right? Can you take them out there? And so you see that here, right? Dude is stoned, practically dead. They drag him out of the city, and then he goes back into the city. He goes right back to the same place that just stoned him, right? Most people wouldn't do that. They'd be like, yeah, I'm not going back in there. That was bad. I'm leaving. But they left when they had preached the gospel to the city and had made many disciples. They returned to Lystra and to Iconium and to Antioch, strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in the faith, and saying that through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. And when they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord, whom they had believed. And so this was big too, right? They left, they went to other places, then they came back, and then they encouraged them, right? And I think we're supposed to also take that encouragement, right? We're supposed to be encouraged. Where was that at? In 22, our souls should be strengthened, and we should be encouraged to continue in the same faith, saying that, and we should understand that through many tribulations, we must enter the kingdom of God, right? And so, yes, Paul and Barnabas came back to encourage them. We should be encouraged by that, right? We're not getting stoned yet, but we're facing tribulations. We're facing counterinsurgency, counterattacks, however you want to say it. We're facing these things. We should be using this in what they did as encouragement to us, right? And then picking up 24, then they passed through Pisidia and came to Pamphylia. And when they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia. And from there they sailed to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had fulfilled. And when they arrived and gathered the church together, they declared all that God had done with them and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And they remained no little time with the disciples. I look up at 27 because they gathered the church together. It doesn't say they went to the church. It doesn't say they met at the church building. No, they gathered the church together because the church is the people. The church is the gathering. It isn't the building. It isn't anything other than the people, right? And if you notice, you don't hear them, oh, we went to the Lutherans, or we went to the Protestants, or we went to the Methodists, or we went to... We're not supposed to be divided, right? If you go back, some of the people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, some with the apostles. The unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles, right? Think about this. Why do we have so many denominations? Because something was talked about, something was said, somebody disagreed with it, and they wanted to step out and do their own thing. And then you ended up with the Lutherans, you ended up with the Methodists, we're just supposed to be the church. We're not supposed to be denominated. We're not supposed to be segregated. We're not supposed to be separate. I'll leave it at that for now. If you want to, we've got a podcast now that we're doing, not attached to the Forge by any means, very separate. It's called The Slides Show. We talk about some serious topics, but it's funny, man. We keep the comedy rolling. Check it out. But that's what I'm saying, man. They gathered church together, and then they declared all that God had done with them. and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles, right? So I think being taught and having a leader is good. And I think being educated in the church is good. But I think we're also supposed to be getting together and talking amongst ourselves, and that is the church. We're talking about what's God's doing in our life, because it's encouraging other people, right? If I'm in a dry spell and I'm discouraged and I'm not seeing what God's doing, and somebody is telling me what God's doing in their life, it might, one, open my eyes up and go, oh man, yeah, God's doing that in my life. I've been just ignoring it though. I'm comfortable. Or it just encourages me, like, man, God's doing all this stuff. Yeah, okay. And it gets me fired up again, right? Because sometimes we choose not to recognize it. Sometimes we choose not to be sold out like that. And so it's good, man. We're supposed to be doing that stuff. And so that was, again, with, what I put there. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that. The healings, man. My buddy's wife being healed like that. We need to be talking about that. We need to give God the credit, not ignore it and go, well, maybe. No, we should be recognizing that and sold out for it. And we should be letting people know to encourage them. Believers, non-believers, we should be encouraging them with that stuff. And it's just huge, right? And just being held out that we're preparing for the many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. We need to be prepared for those tribulations. We need to be prepared for the stonings, for the beatings, because it ain't going to be comfortable. It ain't going to be easy, right? And so that's 14. That wraps it up. We talked about a lot. 15 was a boom moment. 9 to 11, focusing on faith. The whole chapter is really punching faith. But 15, man, hold on to 15. Let me just read it one more time and then we'll get out of here. Men, why are you doing these things? We also are men of like nature with you, and we bring you good news that you should turn from these vain things to a living God who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. We are in them. He made us. We got to hold on to that, right? Thank you guys. Keep praying that we're growing. We're getting ready to step into our youth program, get our high school youth program set up. Kids can come in and get tutored, get workout, get some discipline. We got that coming up. So just prayer for growth for that continues to grow and we get the support we need to make those things happen, and just continue just growth at the Forge and protection for myself, my family, my wife, because my family's involved. Our whole family's involved now, and so yeah, focusing on that. Prayer for that for sure, big time. And just whatever city you're in, man, be praying for your city. There's a lot coming, and preparation that you can align and find other Christians to kind of stay tight with and stay linked up with. Because again, right, you saw they came back and encouraged them. If you're not around other Christians and you're not around people that are wanting to live it out and help encourage you, man, it can be tough. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it can be tough. I think it's important to have a good, strong Christian community around you to help encourage you and keep you rolling through that. So that's all I got. We'll see you guys next week. We're looking at having some other videos popping up throughout the week about the gym. But the Forge Refineries, see you guys next week. Take care. Stay in prayer. If you need anything, contact us, rob@theforgetc.com or theforgetc.com to check out everything else we offer. Or comment below, man. Let us know what you think. Anything we missed, anything you thought was important that we didn't touch on, or if you think we missed the mark and we're way off. Appreciate it, guys. See you next week.